welcome back to Sports Around the 313 with Triple G. And tonight we're going to talk about the four major sports. We're not going to really do much with the college tonight. We're going to talk about the four majors: the Lions, the Tigers, the Pistons, and the Red Wings. But to start off tonight, I want to talk about a little bit about a place that has a little bit of sports relation to it. It's called Knutson's Bakery. Now, any of you that grew up on the west side of Detroit, Michigan, knew Knutson's Bakery. It was on 6 Mile Road between Outer Drive and Southfield Road. I grew up in that area. I went to school in that area. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is because I found out this week that Knutson's Bakery has been there for 90 years and they're closed. They just closed their doors. And I want to tell you something. If you're a Danish guy or a donut guy or any kind of donut person, Knutson's Bakery had the best donuts in the freaking town. I'm telling you. They used to bring them into our elementary school, and we used to get them all the time. And the sports-related situation to this is Knutson's Bakery sponsored a Little League baseball team. Now, that Little League baseball team was yours truly. I was on that team when I was just a wee little guy, and I played on Knutson's Bakery's Little League team for 3 years, and I was a catcher for that team for 3 years. And every time that we get done with a game, win or lose, they'd invite us back to the bakery for free donuts, which was right close to where we played our games. So, it's a sad thing. You grow up, you see different changes in the city, and, again, anybody out there watching this and remembers Knutson's Bakery, you're probably going to have a happy thought about it or a sweet thought about it or something, because it was a great place to go. And Mrs. Knutson, she was always there. When I had a paper route, I used to ride my bike up there. She knew me from the baseball team. I could go in there. I'd never have to pay anything. The only thing I'd pay for is my chocolate milk. And then she'd give me a free donut all the time. So, a shout out to Knutson's Bakery. 90 years on the west side of Detroit. Closed forever. A lot of memories for a lot of kids that I grew up with that were kids that came after me. And I'm sure they sponsored baseball teams for years after that. What a great place. What a great memory. And I want to thank the Knutson family for wonderful, wonderful memories. So good luck to them. Just wanted to mention that and give it a shout out. All right, let's get down to business here. Let's talk about the Detroit Lions to start off with. Okay, the Lions have their rookie mini camp starting this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Last time we spoke on my last episode, they had just gone through free agency. And they picked up what I think are some pretty good free agents they signed, so the linebacker core and so on and so forth. But they hadn't got to the draft yet. Well, the draft just happened recently. And, there were a lot of naysayers again. Oh, my God, the Lions only have 6 picks. What are they going to do? Well, okay, the first pick, which blew my mind and every writer in the city, Detroit, and in the NFL, when they took a center, Frank Ragnow from Arkansas. Now, when we heard the name, we're like, what the hell did the Lions just do with all these people on the board, running backs, defensive ends, defensive tackles? They took a center. So it had to sink in for me. And then after looking at what was going on, looking at the player as an individual, seeing what they're trying to do, and looking at what the general manager is trying to do for the Lions, he's trying to build an offensive line that's going to keep Matthew Stafford on his feet this year. Not on the ground, not running for his life. Now, this guy, Frank Ragnow, after I did research on him, found out this is a good pick. I'm on board with it now. I wasn't right away. I was actually in shock, okay? But now, the dude is like, I don't know, I think he's like 6'6", 300 and some pounds. He's going to be able to keep Matthew Stafford on his feet. The other draft choices, they had 5 other draft choices. They took a running back. They traded up to get a guy out of Auburn, I believe. This kid's going to be good too. I like what he looks like. He says he wants to fill the shoes of Barry Sanders. Well, good luck with that, but I hope he does well. The third pick, I wasn't on board with. It was a cornerback. I was disappointed in that. I still am, because I think there were defensive tackles and defensive ends that were on the board they could have taken that were better picks. Then they traded down, got a defensive lineman from Alabama, which I like. Then the San Diego State pick was a fullback. They're going to go back to that, where they can get the blocking in there to help the running game, because their running game was the worst in the NFL last year. Now, hopefully, they'll pick it up and get a little bit better. So I was happy with that overall. I even said that on my Twitter. And hopefully, the Lions, will get rolling now with the mini camp coming up for the rookies. And I have good hopes, high hopes for the team this year as well to make the playoffs. All right, let's move on to baseball. Again, in my last episode, they were just coming out of training camp, spring training, starting out. All the naysayers were saying the Tigers are going to be the worst team in baseball. And I even saw, all these different writers from USA Today and that, ranking every baseball team and where they're going to end up by the end of the year. And they always had the Tigers in last. Well, guess what? The Tigers aren't the worst team in baseball. Okay, they've already played the end of March, most of April, and now they're into May. And guess what? They were in second place a couple days ago. Minnesota just jack-hopped them. But they're doing pretty good. I mean, overall, the relief pitching, one game they played great. The relief pitching, the next game they suck. But they got a lot of young players that don't know the meaning of losing. Okay, these guys, they're getting the hits. Some of the starting pitchers pretty good. Francisco Liriano is doing very good. They picked him up on a year contract. Fulmer's doing pretty good. He's had a couple ups and downs. But for the most part, the manager, Ron Gardenhire's got these guys energized. He's got these guys really feeling good about themselves. And, there have been some games where they went right to the ninth inning and they ended up pulling it out. So I'm happy with it. They're not the worst team in baseball. There's probably 8 or 10 teams below them that really suck. And I don't think the Tigers will be as bad as them. So, maybe they're not going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to be as bad as all these other son of a bitches talked about in the beginning of the season, that the Tigers are going to stink it up. They're going to be the worst team. In addition to that, they get the number 1 pick in the draft coming up in June, and I got a feeling they got an eye on a great-looking Brady Singer. He's a pitcher out of Florida. I think they're going to pick him. It'd be a great addition to the team to start that rebuild stage. So good luck to the Tigers. Keep it going. All right, let's talk about the Pistons. I wanted to do an episode a little sooner, but I was kind of waiting to see what the hell was going to happen with the owner, Tom Gores, making a decision on Stan Van Gundy, the president/coach of the Pistons. In my last episode, again, I said I was getting a little annoyed with Stan Van Gundy. I was losing my faith in him. And, over the years, I've always felt good about him. And I felt he was a good coach. But I felt toward the end of this year, he should have pulled back, gone to the general manager, president's job, and given up the coaching job and brought in somebody like a Jason Kidd or somebody else to coach the team and let him step back. He didn't do it. He was trying to juggle both balls. And, he made some bad decisions. He overcoached. And so consequently, the owner and Stan Van Gundy got together over the last 3 weeks since the season ended, and Stan's not coming back. Okay, so basically he's walking. They let him go, and with 1 year on his contract, which is sad because I would like to have seen him at least coach and get that last year out of his contract. Now they're going to cut him a check for $7 million. He's going to walk. Happy man, rich man. He's happy. Okay, so now the Pistons. What are we going to do now? Got to get a coach. They got to get one person to coach. They got to get another person to run the front office, the president, general manager of the Pistons. They got the draft coming up. They got all kinds of things happening here. They got Blake Griffin. Sure, they did. That was a good trade if he stays healthy. But it's going to be real interesting to see what they do as far as coaching and general manager. Now, Chauncey Billups' name has been thrown about for the last month or so. Would that be a good pick? He's never run a franchise. We don't know. But then again, Joe Dumars took over years and years ago, and he had never run a franchise either, and he did pretty good in the beginning. So Chauncey Billups, he knows the Pistons. He knows about the blue-collar mentality of the city and the team. That might not be a bad pick, so we'll see what happens. As far as the coach goes, I still like Jason Kidd. He's out there. Mark Jackson's out there. These guys have experience. They played the sport. They were all-stars. They were good players. Jason Kidd, I think, is going into the Hall of Fame. I hope they pick a coach that has had experience in playing and been a coach, not somebody that's just a rising star. We don't need a rising star. We need somebody that's established, that can come in and relate to these players, because got a lot of young players. The Pistons are a young team. So let's hope that Tom Gores and his cronies make the right decision and get the right people in place and start making this team go to the playoffs. Okay, let's go to the Red Wings. All right, we've talked about all 3 sports. We're going to hit the Red Wings last. The Red Wings, as you know, for the last year and a half, I've called for their coach to be canned and bring in somebody else. Okay? I don't believe in the coach. Yeah, everybody says, well, yeah, he's got the attention of the players. I don't see it. I don't see it. He was inexperienced when they brought him in, minor league coach. You got Chris Chelios sitting there. He wants to coach. Some of these other, the Carolina Hurricanes, let me give you a good example. They've gone through a lot of coaches, didn't do well. So what did they do? They brought back one of their old players that has retired, Rod Brindamore. Some of you, if you're a hockey fan, you know who he is. A real grinder, a real great all-star hockey player up there with the Chris Chelioses. Okay, they just signed him to be their new coach. They needed somebody that knew that mentality of that town, of that team, And I don't understand why Ken Holland, who was retained as a general manager, I didn't have a beef with him as much, and Chris Ilitch brought him back and said, we're going to keep him. Okay, then so why didn't you get a new coach? Why don't you bring just Chris Chelios in or somebody else from the organization and bring him in? No, they're going to ride him out. He's got one more year on his contract. We'll see what happens. Let me tell you, if they don't make the playoffs after 2 picks in the first round coming up in the draft, and I guess they got a ton of picks in this draft coming up, and they got a lot of young players that are really developing, if they can get rolling and make the playoffs, then maybe I'll reconsider about this coach, Jeff Blashill. But right now, I just don't feel it with him, and I'm hoping that if he doesn't get this team to the playoffs again after the next year, they got to do something about it. Get rid of him. Go after Gerard Gallant, who's with the Golden Knights, the new expansion team out in Las Vegas, who has gone through 2 rounds now, and they could end up in the Stanley Cup Finals. Ex-Red Wing, who guarded Steve Yzerman, played on his right and his left, and kicked ass for the Red Wings. How the hell did they not get him? He's got an expansion team going into the freaking finals of the Stanley Cup. You figure it out. We got Jeff Blashill, who hasn't had the Wings in the playoffs in 2 freaking years. So you tell me, he's good for 1 more year. Let's see what happens. I'm not in his corner. I hope he does well. I hope he can get these kids kicking ass and get back to the playoffs. And that's what I'm looking at right now. So that kind of wraps it up. Thanks for stopping in. Do me a favor, check out my Twitter. I'm always making comments on that. If you have any feedback for me, hit the button. Give me a hello. I didn't like you, I loved you, whatever. I don't care. I can take it. I got a big back. Let's do it. Okay, now get the hell out of here. You gotta lose your mind. Detroit, Rock City.